How can a harmless joke and a secret affair unravel an entire marriage in the age of viral attention? What happens when a wife's laughter turns into public shame, and her husband quietly turns the tables with lawful precision? This is the story of how my modern love became a cautionary tale, delivered right to my door, in broad daylight. My name is Lysandra Morven, and I thought I was clever. I thought I was bold. I thought I deserved better than Mason Pell, my husband of 8 years, with his quiet ways and his modest data analyst salary. I spent years laughing at his paychecks, comparing him to richer men, making him feel like a failure. I told myself I was just being honest about what I needed, what I deserved. I was wrong about everything. It started with a text from Cade Voss, my ex-boyfriend, a simple message that lit up my phone screen like a beacon of everything missing from my marriage. Saw your anniversary post, still settling for boring, I see. I should have deleted it, should have blocked him. Instead, I found myself typing back, "Some of us believe in commitment," with a laughing emoji that betrayed my words. "Commitment to what? Mediocrity," came his reply, followed by a photo of himself on stage, guitar in hand, crowd cheering. Everything Mason wasn't: spontaneous, exciting, financially successful in his own bohemian way. Our apartment felt smaller that night as Mason hunched over his laptop at the kitchen table, spreadsheets reflected in his glasses. The same routine, the same quiet dedication to his work that paid our bills but never quite covered my dreams. I watched him from the couch, scrolling through Cade's Instagram stories, late-night gigs, expensive restaurants, the kind of life I'd convinced myself I was too good for when I chose stability over passion. "Mason," I called out, not looking up from my phone, "remember how we used to talk about renewing our vows?" He glanced over, hope flickering in his eyes. "You want to do that?" I was thinking something different, something that would get people talking. I showed him a viral video of a couple's elaborate vow renewal, complete with choreographed dance and surprise guests. We could do something memorable. Mason's expression shifted, that familiar wariness I'd learned to navigate around. "Memorable how?" "Trust me," I said, already typing to Cade. "I have an idea." The planning consumed the next few weeks. Cade was all too eager to help, suggesting we stage a dramatic interruption during the ceremony. He'd burst in as the ex who couldn't let me go, only to gracefully bow out when I chose Mason. It would be filmed, posted, and we'd ride the wave of viral fame. "It's harmless," I told Mason when he questioned the rehearsals. "Cade's just helping us create something special." But those rehearsals became something else entirely. Coffee meetings that stretched into long lunches, text threads that I found myself deleting each night, Cade's hand lingering on mine as we practiced his desperate plea for me to leave with him. "You know," he said during one of these sessions, "we could make this more authentic." I knew what he meant. I told myself I was just method acting when I kissed him back. Mason grew quieter, retreating to the guest room with increasing frequency. I'd find him there late at night, surrounded by papers, the printer humming softly. When I asked what he was working on, he'd simply say, "Just organizing things." "You're being paranoid," I told him when he changed the passwords on our joint accounts. "It's just a silly video." My mother, Greta, was thrilled when I showed her the first rehearsal footage. "Finally, some excitement in your life, darling. That husband of yours is far too serious." But Naomi, Mason's sister, watched the video with a frown. "Lysandra, are you sure about this? Mason looks uncomfortable." "He's just camera shy," I dismissed, though I'd noticed it too, the way he stood apart, watching Cade and me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The first video went live on a Tuesday. Within hours, it had thousands of views. The comments were mostly positive. "So romantic." "Relationship goals." "Love the drama." But buried among the praise were other voices. "Her husband doesn't look happy." "Something feels off about this." Poor guy looks like a prop. I ignored them, drunk on the attention, the validation. This was what I'd been missing. People seeing me, talking about me, recognizing that I was worth watching. That night, I found Mason in the guest room again, a new lock on a desk drawer. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. What's in there? I asked. Just documents, he said, not looking up from his laptop. I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to me. What kind of documents require a lock? The important kind. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from HR. Lysandra, please see me when you get in. We need to discuss your recent social media activity. For the first time, a chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it away. This was just the price of being bold, of refusing to settle for ordinary. Mason would come around. He always did. I had no idea he was already 3 steps ahead of me, quietly building a case I wouldn't see coming until it was too late. The meeting with Mr. Caro, my manager, was worse than I'd expected. He sat across from his glass desk, my phone displaying the viral video between us, like evidence in a trial. Lysandra, I need you to understand something, he said, his voice carefully neutral. When you represent our company on social media, your personal brand reflects on us. This performance art, or whatever you're calling it, is generating the wrong kind of attention. It's just a vow renewal video, I protested. Couples do this all the time. Couples don't usually involve ex-boyfriends in staged romantic triangles that make their spouses look like fools, he replied, scrolling through the comments. Look at this. Her husband looks dead inside. Why is she humiliating him publicly? This is painful to watch. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. People are just jealous. They don't understand modern relationships. Mr. Caro closed his laptop. I'm not asking you to take it down, but I am asking you to consider the optics. We're a family-oriented business, Lysandra. Our clients expect a certain level of discretion. The word stung more than it should have. Discretion. As if wanting excitement in my life was somehow shameful. I called Cade on my lunch break, needing to hear someone tell me I wasn't crazy. Forget them, he said, his voice warm through the phone. You're finally living authentically. That's what threatens people. Mason's been so strange lately, distant, like he's planning something. Maybe he is. Maybe he's finally realizing what he's about to lose. We met that afternoon at our usual cafe, ostensibly to plan the actual vow renewal ceremony, but the conversation quickly shifted to us, to the electric tension that had been building through weeks of rehearsals. You know what the real joke is? Cade said, reaching across the table to trace my wedding ring with his finger. You're wasting your best years on someone who doesn't even see you. He sees me, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Does he? When's the last time he surprised you, made you feel alive? I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. When I got home that evening, Piper, our 7-year-old daughter, was building a fort in the living room. Mason was helping her, his genuine smile a stark contrast to the forced expressions I'd grown used to. Mommy, Piper called out, Daddy's making the best fort ever. That's nice, sweetheart, I said, distracted by my phone buzzing with notifications. The video had hit 50,000 views. Why is Mr. Cade on TV with you? Piper asked suddenly, her innocent question cutting through the room like a blade. Mason's hand stilled on the blanket he was arranging. What do you mean, honey? Jessie at school showed me. You and Mommy and the man who came to dinner that time. Why were you pretending to get married again? I felt Mason's eyes on me, but I couldn't meet them. It's just a silly video, Piper, like playing pretend. But why did the man try to kiss you? The silence stretched until Mason spoke, his voice carefully controlled. Sometimes adults make videos to get attention, sweetheart, like when you perform for Grandma and Grandpa. But his tone suggested he thought very little of this particular performance. That night, I found him moving more files, changing passwords on accounts I didn't even know we had. When I asked about it, he simply said, "Just updating our security." The vow renewal ceremony was set for the following Saturday. As the day approached, our home felt like a stage set where we were all playing roles we didn't quite understand. Mason went through the motions of planning, but I could see him cataloguing everything. Every text I tried to hide, every time Cade called, every moment I chose my phone over our family. The ceremony itself was a surreal blur. The community hall filled with friends and family, cameras rolling as Cade made his dramatic entrance. The script we'd rehearsed played out perfectly. His passionate plea, my moment of temptation, my ultimate choice to stay with Mason. But watching it back later, I could see what the commenters meant. Mason didn't look like a man fighting for his wife's love. He looked like someone watching a performance he'd already seen too many times. The video exploded overnight. 100,000 views, then 200,000. My phone couldn't keep up with the notifications. I was trending, I was famous, and I was addicted. "Look at this," I told my mother over lunch, showing her the analytics. "We're viral, Mom. Actually viral." Greta beamed with pride. "I always knew you were destined for bigger things than that quiet little life Mason wanted for you." But at the family gathering that Sunday, the mood was different. Arthur, Mason's father, barely looked at me. Naomi was coolly polite. Even Piper seemed confused by all the attention, asking why strangers were commenting about our family. "Because Mommy's famous now," I told her, but the words felt hollow. It was Naomi who finally said what everyone was thinking. "Lysandra, I hope you know what you're doing. Mason's a good man, but he's not a doormat." "I'm not treating him like one," I protested. "Aren't you?" She showed me her phone, open to the video's comment section. "Because this is what the world sees." The comments had shifted. What started as entertainment had become a dissection of our marriage, our family, our lives. People were taking sides, and increasingly, they weren't choosing mine. "Poor Mason. She's humiliating him for clout. This is what narcissism looks like. Someone needs to check on that little girl." That last comment hit like a physical blow. They were talking about Piper, but instead of taking the video down, I doubled down. I posted a follow-up, a behind-the-scenes video explaining our modern approach to marriage and how secure couples can explore fantasy safely. The backlash was swift and brutal. That night, I found Mason in the guest room again, a new folder labeled Statement locked in his desk drawer. When I asked about it, he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something far more dangerous: disappointment. "Mason, talk to me. What's going on?" "I think you know exactly what's going on, Lysandra. The question is whether you care." I wanted to fight, to defend myself, to make him understand that I was just trying to live authentically. But the words died in my throat, because somewhere, in the deepest part of myself, I knew he was right. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. The turning point came at Sarah Chen's rooftop birthday party, 3 weeks after the video went viral. I'd been looking forward to it, a chance to bask in my newfound fame, to be the center of attention among our social circle. Instead, I walked into a wall of polite smiles and carefully averted eyes. "Lysandra." Sarah greeted me with an embrace that felt performative. "So glad you could make it." But as the evening progressed, I noticed the subtle shifts. Conversations that stopped when I approached, groups that somehow dissolved when I tried to join them. The way people's eyes slid past me to focus on Mason, who stood quietly by the bar, nursing a single beer and responding to the genuine sympathy being offered to him. "How are you holding up?" I heard Jennifer ask him, her voice low but not low enough. "I'm fine," Mason replied, but his shoulders carried the weight of public humiliation. "You don't have to pretend with us," David added. "What she did, putting you through that for internet points, it's not right." I wanted to march over and defend myself, but Cade chose that moment to appear at my elbow, sliding an arm around my waist with practiced familiarity. "Quite the party," he murmured in my ear, "though the crowd seems a bit judgmental." "They don't understand," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "Their loss," he said, pulling me closer. "Want to get out of here?" I should have said no. Should have gone to Mason, tried to salvage the evening, the situation, us. Instead, I let Cade lead me to a quiet corner of the rooftop, away from the disapproving stares. "You're better than this," he said, his hands framing my face. "Better than their small-minded morality." When he kissed me, I didn't pull away. And when someone's phone camera flashed in the darkness, capturing the moment, I told myself it didn't matter, that I was free to live my truth. The photo was online before we left the party. The next morning brought a new wave of viral infamy, but this time there was no ambiguity, no "it's just acting" defense. The image was clear. Me in another man's arms while my husband stood alone across the rooftop, finally looking every bit as broken as the internet had predicted. My phone rang constantly. Reporters, bloggers, social media influencers, wanting to interview the woman who'd become the internet's latest villain. I declined them all, but the story grew without my input. Viral wife's real affair exposed. When fake drama becomes real betrayal. The husband who stood by while his wife humiliated him until now. That last headline confused me until I saw the accompanying article. Someone had interviewed Mason's colleagues, friends, family members. The picture they painted was of a devoted husband and father who'd endured years of subtle emotional abuse, financial criticism, and public humiliation. She always made him feel like he wasn't enough, an unnamed source said. His salary, his ambitions, his quiet personality, nothing was ever good enough for her standards. Reading it felt like looking at our marriage through a funhouse mirror, distorted but recognizably true. The workplace consequences came swiftly. Mr. Caro called me into his office again, this time with HR present. "Lysandra, we've received several complaints from clients who recognize you from the viral content," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Our family-oriented business model is incompatible with this level of controversy. You're firing me for my personal life? We're placing you on administrative leave pending a review of your social media conduct and its impact on company reputation," the HR representative clarified. "This is standard procedure for situations involving public relations concerns." I wanted to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. Screenshots of my posts, the video, the rooftop photo, all tied to my company email signature and LinkedIn profile. At home, the atmosphere had shifted from tension to something approaching mourning. Piper spent more time at Naomi's house, away from the chaos. Mason moved through our shared spaces like a ghost, polite but distant, methodically organizing papers and making phone calls in hushed tones. "Daddy, why is Mommy sad all the time now?" I heard Piper ask him one evening. "Sometimes adults make choices that have consequences they didn't expect," Mason replied carefully. "But it's not your job to worry about grown-up problems. Are you and Mommy still married?" The pause that followed felt endless. "We're still your parents, sweetheart. That will never change." It wasn't an answer, but it wasn't a lie either. My mother tried to offer support during our weekly lunch, but even her unwavering loyalty was showing cracks. "Perhaps," she said delicately, "it's time to consider whether this exploration has run its course." "You were the one encouraging me to live boldly," I reminded her. "Bold, yes, but not destructive." She showed me her tablet, open to an article about the psychological impact of viral shaming on families. "Piper's teachers are asking questions, darling. People are watching your family now." That evening, I tried to talk to Mason, to explain myself, to find some path back to normalcy. "I never meant for it to go this far," I said, finding him in the guest room, surrounded by bankers' boxes I didn't remember seeing before. What did you mean for it to do? He asked without looking up from the documents he was organizing. I just wanted excitement, attention, to feel alive again. And now you do. How does it feel? The question was delivered without malice, which somehow made it worse. This wasn't anger I could fight against. It was the calm assessment of someone who'd already made his decision. Mason, please. We can fix this. I can delete everything, make a public apology. Can you delete the affair? The words hung in the air between us. We'd never spoken about it directly, but of course he knew. Had probably known before I'd fully admitted it to myself. It didn't mean anything, I said weakly. It meant everything, he replied, finally meeting my eyes. It meant you were willing to humiliate our family for the approval of strangers. It meant you valued your own entertainment over our daughter's well-being. It meant our marriage was so worthless to you that you turned it into content. I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come, because he was right. What happens now? I asked. Mason returned to his papers, his voice matter of fact. Now you get what you wanted. Freedom from boring, ordinary me. That night, I lay awake in our empty bed, listening to the sound of the printer humming from the guest room. Outside, the city buzzed with life, people living their ordinary, unviral lives, content with privacy and quiet love. For the first time in months, I envied them, but it was too late for envy. The machinery Mason had been quietly building was almost ready to move, and I was about to discover that my husband's greatest strength had never been his passion or his salary. It was his patience. The first sign that Mason's patience had run out came on a Tuesday morning when I woke to find the guest room door not just closed, but secured with a new deadbolt lock. What's with the lock? I asked over breakfast, trying to keep my tone light. Mason looked up from his coffee, his expression unreadable. Privacy. Privacy from what? I'm your wife. Are you? The question was asked so mildly that it took a moment for the impact to hit. Piper, oblivious to the tension, chatted about her upcoming school play, while Mason packed her lunch with the same methodical care he brought to everything. I noticed he'd added a new key to his keyring, silver, unfamiliar, and definitely not for any lock I recognized in our home. I'm taking Piper to school today, he announced, though it wasn't his usual day. I can do it. I'm doing it. There was finality in his voice that brooked no argument. After they left, I tried the new key on every lock in the apartment. The desk drawer, the filing cabinet, even our bedroom door. Nothing. Whatever Mason was protecting, he'd moved it somewhere I couldn't access. My phone buzzed with a text from Cade. Coffee today. I have news about the record deal. I stared at the message, remembering when such texts filled me with excitement. Now they felt like evidence in a case I didn't fully understand yet. Instead of responding, I called my mother. He's planning something, Mom. Mason's being strategic. Strategic how? New locks, mysterious keys, late-night phone calls. Yesterday, I heard him telling someone, everything should be ready by next week. Greta was quiet for a moment. Darling, perhaps it's time to consider that you might have pushed things too far. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of my daughter not destroying her life for social media attention. The conversation ended badly, leaving me more isolated than ever. That afternoon, I met Naomi at the park where she was watching Piper play. It wasn't planned. I'd gone for a walk to clear my head and found them there, my daughter laughing on the swings while my sister-in-law watched with protective intensity. She's been staying with you a lot lately, I observed, settling beside Naomi on the bench. Mason thought she could use some stability. I provide stability. Naomi turned to look at me, her expression a mixture of pity and frustration. Lysandra, do you hear yourself? You've turned your family into a public spectacle, had an affair that's been photographed and posted online, and you're wondering why a 7-year-old might need some peace. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Her voice was sharp now. You had a good man who loved you, a beautiful daughter. a stable life, and you threw it away because you were bored. You don't understand what it's like, being married to someone who never what? Never cheated on you, never humiliated you publicly, never made you feel small. Naomi stood up, her composure finally cracking. Because from where I sit, you're the one who's been doing all of those things. That evening, I tried again to reach Mason, to break through whatever wall he'd built around himself. Talk to me, I pleaded, finding him in the kitchen, methodically packing items into boxes. Tell me what you're planning. I'm not planning anything, he said, wrapping our wedding china in newspaper. I'm responding. Responding to what? To you showing me exactly who you are. I watched him work, noting the systematic way he approached each item. Some things went into boxes labeled M, others into boxes labeled L. A few special items, Piper's artwork, family photos that predated our marriage, went into boxes marked P. You're dividing our things. I'm organizing them. For what? Mason paused in his packing, a wedding photo in his hands. It showed us 8 years ago, young and hopeful, surrounded by family and friends who believed in our future. Do you remember what you said in your vows? He asked. I did, but barely. Something about partnership, about facing life's challenges together, about choosing each other every day. You promised to choose me, he continued. Every day, in small ways and big ones. And for a while, you did. But somewhere along the way, you started choosing yourself. Your image, your excitement, your validation, and I became, what? A prop in your story. That's not. It is. He set the photo aside, not in any of the boxes. And I enabled it by staying quiet, by hoping you'd remember what we built together. But you don't remember, do you? You see our life as something that happened to you, not something we created. The next morning, I woke to find half our shared belongings gone. Not stolen, organized, relocated. Mason had worked through the night with the precision of a man executing a long-considered plan. His clothes were gone from our closet, his books from our shelves, his coffee mug from our kitchen cabinet. It was as if he was systematically erasing himself from our shared space, taking only what was unquestionably his. But he'd left things too. The mortgage papers, utility bills, credit card statements, all the mundane responsibilities of adult life that I'd been happy to let him handle. Where did you take everything? I asked when he returned from another mysterious errand. Somewhere safe. Mason, this is ridiculous. We're married. We can work this out. He looked at me with something approaching sympathy. Lysandra, we stopped being married the moment you decided our relationship was content for your audience. That afternoon, my phone rang with an unknown number. Ms. Morven, this is Jenkins Courier Service. We have a delivery scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., downtown Civic Plaza. Please confirm you'll be available to sign for the package. I think you have the wrong person. I'm not expecting. Package is addressed to Lysandra Morven from Mason Pell. Legal documents requiring signature confirmation. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in growing panic. Legal documents. Downtown. Public location. I called Mason immediately, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, got no response. I even called Naomi, who simply said, he's doing what he needs to do. That night, I sat in our nearly empty apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd taken for granted. The silence was deafening. No sound of Mason's laptop, no gentle rustling of papers, no quiet presence that had anchored our home for 8 years. For the first time since this all began, I was truly alone with my choices, and tomorrow, apparently, I would face the consequences. I arrived at the downtown Civic Plaza at 8:45 a.m., my hands shaking as I clutched my coffee like a lifeline. The morning was crisp and clear, office workers hurrying past with their own urgent business, oblivious to the personal drama about to unfold. I'd barely slept, running through scenarios in my mind. Divorce papers, most likely, though the public location puzzled me. Why not serve them at home, or through lawyers? Why this theatrical staging? Then I saw him. Mason stood near the central fountain, wearing his best suit, the navy one I'd bought him for his promotion last year, back when I still cared about his professional success. He wasn't alone. A woman in a crisp business suit stood beside him, briefcase in hand, and behind them, almost hidden behind a newspaper, sat Arthur, Mason's father. But it was the small crowd of onlookers that made my stomach drop. People with phones, some I recognized as local bloggers and social media personalities who'd been following our viral saga. Someone had tipped them off. "Ms. Morven?" The courier appeared at my elbow, a young man with a tablet and a thick manila envelope. "I need you to sign for this delivery." "Wait," I said, suddenly understanding. "This is being recorded, isn't it?" Mason approached, his expression calm but resolute. "You made our private life public, Lysandra. It seems fitting that this should be public too." The irony wasn't lost on me. After months of craving an audience, I finally had one for the moment I least wanted to be seen. "You don't have to do this," I said, my voice carrying across the plaza's morning quiet. "We can talk privately, work something out." "We had 8 years to work things out," Mason replied. "You chose a different path." The courier thrust the tablet at me impatiently. "Ma'am, I need your signature to complete the delivery." With trembling fingers, I signed my name, officially receiving whatever Mason had prepared for this moment. The envelope was thick, professionally bound, with my name written in Mason's careful handwriting. Inside, I found documents that represented the systematic dismantling of our shared life: petition for dissolution of marriage, custody arrangement proposal, financial disclosure statements, asset division worksheets, each page meticulously prepared, every detail considered, every contingency addressed. But it was the cover letter that broke me. Lysandra. For 8 years, I loved you quietly. I supported your dreams, overlooked your criticisms, and tried to be the husband you needed. When you told me I wasn't exciting enough, I planned surprise trips. When you said I didn't earn enough, I worked overtime and pursued certifications. When you complained about routine, I suggested date nights and adventures. But I couldn't compete with the validation of strangers. I couldn't manufacture the kind of drama that makes people click and share and comment. I could only offer you real love, daily partnership, and quiet devotion. Apparently, that wasn't enough. The papers you're holding represent not anger, but acceptance. I accept that you need more than I can give. I accept that our marriage became performance art for your audience. I accept that our daughter deserves better than to watch her parents destroy each other for entertainment. What I won't accept is being treated as a supporting character in your story any longer. The custody arrangement is generous because I know you love Piper, even if you've lost sight of how to show it appropriately. The financial division is fair because I don't want your money. I want my dignity. You're free now, Lysandra. Free to chase whatever excitement you think you're missing. Free from boring, ordinary me. I hope it's everything you dreamed it would be. Mason P.S. I won $1,000 in the state lottery 2 days ago. The ticket was in my desk drawer, the one you tried so hard to get into. I thought you should know, since my salary was always such a disappointment to you. The letter fluttered from my numb fingers as the full impact hit me. $1 million. He'd won $1 million and hadn't told me, hadn't shared the excitement, hadn't even hinted at this life-changing windfall, because by then I was no longer part of his life to change. "Mason, wait." I started toward him, but he was already walking away, his lawyer and father flanking him like a protective detail. The crowd pressed closer, phones capturing my humiliation in real time. Someone was live streaming, I realized, broadcasting my breakdown to the same audience that had cheered my viral content just weeks before. "How does it feel?" a blogger called out. "Your husband's a millionaire and you're getting divorced." "Any comment on the lottery win?" shouted another. "Are you going back to your boyfriend now?" I ran. Through the plaza, past the cameras, away from the questions and the judgment, and the crushing weight of my own choices. I didn't stop until I reached my car, where I sat in the parking garage, sobbing over documents that legally dissolved the best thing in my life. My phone buzzed constantly, notifications, calls, texts. The story was already spreading. Viral wife gets served divorce papers as husband wins $1 million lottery. The ultimate karma. Woman who humiliated husband loses everything as he strikes it rich. But it was the text from Cade that made me laugh bitterly through my tears. Saw the news. Maybe we should take a break until this blows over. You understand. Even he was abandoning me now that the excitement had turned to genuine consequence. I drove home to our apartment, my apartment now, I supposed, and found it exactly as I'd left it that morning. Half empty, echoing, stripped of the quiet warmth that Mason had brought to every space he occupied. On the kitchen counter sat a single key, the silver one I'd noticed on his ring, and a USB drive labeled "For Your Records." With shaking hands, I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained everything: screenshots of my deleted texts with Cade, timestamps of my social media posts, photos from the rooftop party, financial records showing the money I'd spent on new clothes and dinners during my rehearsals. But it also contained things I'd forgotten, videos of Piper's school plays that Mason had attended alone while I worked late, screenshots of his supportive comments on my posts before everything went viral, photos of surprise dinners he'd cooked, flowers he'd brought home, small gestures of love I'd dismissed as routine. The evidence of my betrayal was damning, but the evidence of his devotion was devastating. At the bottom of the folder was a video file labeled "For Lysandra." I clicked it with trembling fingers. Mason appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like a lawyer's office, his expression calm but tired. "If you're watching this, then you've received the papers and you know about the lottery." I wanted to explain why I did things this way, why I couldn't just hand you divorce papers quietly and walk away. "You turned our marriage into a public spectacle, Lysandra. You made our private struggles into entertainment for strangers. So I thought it was only fair that you understand the consequences publicly too. I don't hate you. I don't even blame you entirely. We both let our marriage drift into something neither of us recognized. But when you chose to handle that drift by finding someone else, by humiliating me for internet points, by making our daughter watch her parents' love become a joke, that's when I knew I had to choose myself. The lottery win is ironic, I know. All those years you said I wasn't ambitious enough, didn't earn enough, couldn't provide the life you wanted. And maybe you were right. Maybe I was too comfortable with ordinary happiness. But I'd rather be alone with $1 million than married to someone who sees me as a disappointment. Take care of yourself, Lysandra. And please, for Piper's sake, take care of her too. The video ended, leaving me staring at my own reflection in the black screen. Outside, the city hummed with ordinary life. People going to work, coming home to families, living the quiet, unviral existence I'd been so eager to escape. And somewhere in that city, Mason was starting over with dignity intact and a bank account that proved the universe had a sense of humor. While I sat alone in our empty apartment, finally understanding the difference between being seen and being valued, between excitement and love, between going viral and building a life. The joke, it turned out, had been on me all along. 3 months later, I sat in the same apartment, now officially mine according to the divorce decree, staring at my phone screen. The cursor blinked in the empty text box, waiting for me to compose something, an apology, an explanation, a plea for forgiveness. But what do you say to someone whose life you destroyed for entertainment? The viral fame had died as quickly as it had come. The internet had moved on to newer scandals, fresher content, more dramatic breakdowns. My follower count had plummeted. My mentions had dwindled to the occasional cruel reminder of my public humiliation. The silence was deafening. I'd lost my job permanently, the company citing irreconcilable differences with our brand values. Cade had disappeared entirely, blocking my number after the divorce went public. Even my mother had grown distant, embarrassed by the ongoing media attention and the way her friends looked at her with pity. "You made your choices, darling," she'd said during our last conversation. "Now you have to live with them." The custody arrangement Mason had proposed turned out to be more generous than I deserved. Piper stayed with me on weekends, but even those visits had become strained. She was polite but guarded, asking careful questions about why Daddy lived in a new house now, why Mommy seemed sad all the time, why people at school talked about our family. "Are you famous, Mommy?" she'd asked last weekend, her 7-year-old mind trying to process the fragments of adult drama she'd overheard. "I was, for a little while," I'd answered honestly. "Was it fun?" I'd looked at my daughter, beautiful, innocent, deserving of so much better than what I'd put her through, and felt the full weight of my choices. "No, sweetheart, it wasn't fun at all." Mason's new house was in a better neighborhood than our old apartment, a testament to what $1 million could buy when managed by someone who understood the value of stability over spectacle. I'd driven past it once, not to spy, but to drop off Piper's forgotten homework, and had seen them through the window, father and daughter building another blanket fort, both of them laughing. The sight had broken something in me that hadn't healed yet. My phone buzzed with a notification. A news article. Local man's lottery, win funds children's education charity. The photo showed Mason at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, Piper beside him holding oversized scissors, both of them smiling for cameras that captured joy instead of humiliation. The article mentioned his divorce only in passing. Pell, who recently ended his marriage to viral internet personality Lysandra Morven, says he wants to use his windfall to make a positive impact on his community. Even in his success, he was protecting me from further scrutiny. I scrolled through the comments, expecting the usual vitriol about our divorce, but found something different. People praising Mason's generosity, celebrating his fresh start, expressing admiration for how he'd handled his public humiliation with dignity. This guy is a class act. From viral victim to community hero, good for him. His ex-wife must be kicking herself now. That last comment stung because it missed the point entirely. I wasn't kicking myself because Mason had money now. I was drowning in regret because I'd lost a good man, destroyed my family, and traumatized my daughter for the fleeting high of internet attention. The money was just salt in a self-inflicted wound. My laptop chimed with an email. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe it was Mason, maybe we could talk, maybe there was some path to redemption. Instead, it was from a podcast producer who wanted to interview me about life after viral fame and the dark side of social media relationships. They offered a modest fee and promised to let me tell my side of the story. I almost replied, desperate to defend myself, but I thought of Piper and deleted the email. Days later, Naomi texted about Piper's school play and said I could come. I sat in the back row and watched Piper glow on stage while Mason applauded from the front. Afterward, Piper asked if I wanted ice cream with them, and I gently said no. It was daddy time. Driving home, I saw a parent's photo of Piper posted online, and for once I didn't need to share it. I just felt quiet acceptance. Some moments are too precious to perform.